And here we go. Welcome, folks. It's the Friday Live that you've all been waiting for. We're talking about the Conservatives' plan for veterans if they are to get elected. And I wanted to go over it today because it's the only party that I could find that's actually got a plan. Liberals don't really have one. Other parties don't really have one. So we're going to dissect it a little bit. I'm going to give it a little bit of my insights and bring you along for the ride. Let's welcome Thick Beaver. Let's go. How you doing, buddy? Welcome to the show. And for you folks that are just tuning in, make sure to share this broadcast so that more people can tune in, whether you're on X, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Facebook. And I believe we're on Instagram as well. I can never truly tell because I can't see the broadcast. But if you're on Instagram, let me know. Drop a comment like, bro, I'm on Instagram. I'm listening. That would be swell. If you could like the video, and if you haven't already, subscribe. That would be freaking awesome. I'm a bit jazzed up today, and it's not coffee related. It's fight related. Tomorrow is Moro Fight Day. Both my kids are stepping on the mats with me in Aylmer, Quebec. We're going to be doing our first jiu-jitsu competition as a family, and I couldn't be more fired up. Like, I've got like nervous energy already tingling through my body right now. So if I'm speaking a little bit faster, if I'm stumbling over my words a little bit, it's because I got the adrenaline already pumping. So can't wait. It's going to be super fun. It's going to be part of my journey to improving myself, and something that I include in my book. So I'm going to walk the walk, talk the talk, and share with you guys the experience. So follow me on Instagram. Link should be here in the description. If not, head over to the Hard to Kill podcast on Instagram, where I'll be sharing in my stories what's happening tomorrow as a kind of a play-by-play. So let's begin. We're going to look at the conservative policy that they launched last week for veterans. I was actually quite excited. Some of the stuff that came up, I was like, yeah, I was fist pumping, right? Some of the stuff that seems to be right out of the podcast. Some of the stuff that's like, wow, hey, are they listening? Because that would be sweet. And we're going to go step by step through that journey. So if you've already seen it before, drop it in the comments. Like, yeah, I watched it. Love to know what you guys think as we progress through the show. And we'll stop periodically to take your questions live here in the comments. So without further ado, without dilly-dallying here, let's start.
For too long, the Carney-Trudeau Liberals have promised to stand by our veterans, and they let them down. Liberals promised to bring back lifelong pensions for injured veterans. They broke that promise. Liberals promised veterans would never have to fight their own government in court just to get their benefits. They broke that promise. They promised to make it easier for veterans to access services. They broke that promise too. Under the Liberals, the number of veterans waiting for disability benefits has exploded. Case managers were cut. Veterans were left stranded. And when they asked for help, Trudeau said,
they're asking for more than we are able to give right now.
More than we can give, while he handed millions of dollars to a convicted terrorist. Our hero.
All right. So let's pause it right there. Now, you've likely seen the interview there, or the part where Brock, good old Brock, stood up and called out Trudeau when he was on the, I believe it was on the election campaign in 2015, where he had the audacity, but the honesty to also say they're asking for more than we can give, which is how they feel, right? Oh, we just don't have enough. We just don't have enough. We don't have enough to get. There's just, sorry, we got no more money. I don't know what to say. Like we'll do our best, but unfortunately, there's not enough. So some of the points that were brought up there: lifelong pensions. Now, the interesting thing on the lifelong pension things is that the Conservatives were the ones we all know that canned that idea back in the day. I think it was 2007 with the new veteran charter. So, all right, Conservatives, you got some ground game to work on here, because I think we should have those lifelong pensions back. The system we have now is a disaster, in my opinion, having gone through it. So they're addressing some of the things in the video, and we'll get into later. And no court battles. Yeah, man, like the COVID battles right now are just absolutely atrocious. Battling for your disability from cancer due to burn pits is absurd. The list goes on and on and on. We're being fought individually, which is kind of the plan. So yeah, big supporter of not having to do that. That would be great. The disability pensions, it's so convoluted and messed up that I don't even know one system from another. Can I even call them disability pensions? I don't know. I don't know why they have such a messed up, complicated system right now. So hopefully that'll be addressed, and we'll go over some of the things that Polyev is talking about in his plan. And asking for too much. I don't know. I'd like to hear what you guys think. Are veterans really asking for too much? I mean, on face value, there's only 460,000 of us. Not that many of us claim benefits. I believe Veterans Affairs has a $2 billion budget. Somebody could fact check me on that. And in terms of government expenditure, it's nothing compared to what the Americans spend, which is astronomical. So to say that they don't have enough when we know that there's plenty of programs that are pork bellies, I think is the term they use, where they just stuff these contracts with millions and millions of dollars and then have the audacity to tell us, oh, we don't have enough, but we give Omar Khadr $10 million, a known terrorist. Something smells fishy, and I hope we can change course and get our voice heard. And that's the point of this video. So let's look at their plan. Let's look at their plan, and let's see if we got any comments here before we move ahead. Gary, yeah, you already know the Liberal plan. If you're lucky, you'll get made. Otherwise, scrap in taxes. Yeah, I guess you're right. So we'll move on from there. But to your point, Gary, yeah, the Liberals, all I can find is we're going to support our veterans. They didn't come out with a detailed plan like the Conservatives. I think that speaks volumes. And on top of that, if we look at the leadership debate, correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't hear one thing, and I watched it. I didn't hear one thing about veterans, but I also didn't hear anything about defense, which kind of tells you, again, it's not really important. It's not on their list of priorities here in Canada. It never has been, but maybe someday it will. But that's not the point of today's video. We're going to look at the plan. So carrying on.
Those deserve better. A Pierre Poilievre-led Conservative government will deliver better. So let me share with you part of our Canada First plan for Canada's veterans. First, we'll ensure veterans benefit before they leave the military. No more waiting. Second.
All right. So first one here, no more waiting. Okay. So the biggest thing that, I've got, my biggest point here is that the system right now deals with it's kind of like a two-tier system, right? So you have the GWAT veterans that are all getting out now. So that's me and all my cohort, right? We're, in our late 30s, early 40s, 50s. So we're the quote unquote young veterans, and we fought in the global war on terror. So how to have your VAC benefits in place? You kind of do when you live. I mean, I worked at the transition center, so I'm not quite sure what they mean by have their benefits in place. Are you talking about the actual, let's say, IRB in place? I guess that would make sense. The only point that I can see is that that would be an issue is that right now you have another organization called PCVRS, which is a complete and utter gong show. It's a nightmare. That's not even part of VAC. In my opinion, it's just some scam that the Liberals came up with to funnel money into an insurance company owned by Loblaws, the Westons, because they're a large donor to the campaigns, but I believe they're a large donor to the Conservatives as well. Fact check me on that, but there seems to be something weird going on there. So if you could have the benefits in place before you leave, that would be sweet. How are you going to do it logistically and bureaucratically? Obviously, this video doesn't go into the how, it just goes into the what. That would be an interesting development. Let's just put it that way, if that were to actually happen. So moving on to point number 2, with relation to jobs in the public service.
And we'll prioritize veterans for jobs in the public service, doubling the hiring target at Veterans Affairs and fast-tracking the renewal of security clearances for veterans who already have them. Third.
All right. So some points on this. The public service hire. So you have a priority hire. I've gone through it and I got a job in the public service. I worked at the Canadian Armed Forces Transition Center. Well, sorry, I shouldn't say transition unit. So I worked at headquarters in Ottawa. The process, although clunky at start, did work pretty well. Now, as far as I know, there wasn't any other people applying for the job that I had the priority hire for. So I don't think I was a DEI hire, because this is kind of DEI, right? It's like, we want like veterans as, so do I agree with DEI if it's for veterans? You're putting me in an awkward place now. But that being said, the system is already there. I think it's just the fact that most veterans don't take advantage of it. Doubling it, I think, is a good thing. I think we need more veterans in the public service. But to push back on that, if we're going to get involved in VAC, let's say there's going to be more veterans in VAC, which I think there should be. And to be honest, I really think the head of VAC should be a veteran. I think the days of just hiring bureaucrats because of bureaucrats to hold public office and different cabinet positions, I don't think you should be the cabinet minister for Canadian Armed Forces if you didn't serve. I don't think you should be the head of Veterans Affairs if you didn't serve. Just like I don't think you should be head of the Treasury if you're not an economist. These are just basic things that I think should happen in our society, and in our political spectrum. But that's a whole other podcast. That being said, what's appealing about working for VAC is I worked at the at CAF headquarters, at CAF TG, and it really didn't fit my personality. So maybe you work in headquarters when you served in the CAF and you're okay with that bureaucratic structure. I didn't work ever in the office. I was always in the field. I was deployed. I just didn't work for me. It's not a good environment. Nobody gets anything done. It's just endless loops of emails and nobody gets shit done. That was the most frustrating thing in the world. So I just, during the COVID thing, they basically gave me an ultimatum and I said, yeah, I'm out. I'm not going to stick around. So doubling it may be tough, but it may be a good bridge to anybody getting out and trying to figure out what they want to do. So there are plenty of other good jobs in the public service, I'm sure, but VAC would be great to have more veterans in there because it could change the culture potentially, but it comes with a big caveat that you're going to be working with a lot of weird civvies. So good idea. Let's see how it goes. Carrying on with spouses and the Veterans Hiring Act.
We'll incorporate spouses of veterans and Canadian Forces members into the Veterans Hiring Act. Fourth, we'll give...
So real quick and dirty here, I think that's just a no-brainer. I'm actually surprised that that doesn't exist already. Spouses are essentially members of the CAF, in my opinion. They have to move with you. They have to deal with all the back-end shit that you bring home. They likely have to leave their careers and pack up all the time. You know, like I was a reservist, so I just picked and choose. I was choosy what I wanted to do, and I wasn't married at the time either. So for you regular force folks, like I feel for you, especially for your spouses that have to pack up and leave all the time, can't really have a career, which sucks. So absolutely, this should just be a no-brainer that you get all the same priority hires as anybody that's served. Okay, so we've covered off 3 main things here. Let's hit the comments. Let's see what people are saying. So let's go to Sale Maker. I think in response to some folks who don't receive their pension for 3 to 6 months. Okay, so this is in reference to the having the benefits in place. Yeah, I mean, That must suck. I mean, with getting out and not having your financial house kind of in order. Now, having built the training for troops getting out of the forces, there, you have enough time usually to get out months and months. Now, you should be getting your VAC account sorted out. These are all things that are brought to your attention. Nobody can force you to do it. But yeah, there should be some seamless transition, but obviously things don't work as well as planned. So in this case, yeah, they don't receive their pension for 3 to 6 months. And I've seen horror stories where it's just been longer than 3 to 6 months. And then all the other things that come with it too, right? Like how do you cover your monthly expenses if you have a house, car, everything like that, and your spouse maybe doesn't have a stable employment because they've been moving around with you for so many years. I can only imagine it must be a freaking nightmare. So if you don't have a job lined up or you can't work because you've been banged up and you can't work anymore because of the military, yeah, that could be a real problem. So getting that sorted would be real good. And let's carry on to point number. Where are we on? Point number 4. Vet-owned businesses. I'm going to go deep into this one because this one is close to home for me. This is something that I've been harping on for the last little bit. So let's see what.
Give
Pierre has to say.
preference to veteran-owned businesses in federal contracts. Fifth,
It's quick and dirty. Preference to veteran-owned businesses for federal contracts. And I think we saw Leonard from Arrowhead Coffee in there. I think that was him stacking boxes, but shout out to Leonard if it is him. Good job. The business thing. Okay, so there's a few things. And it's based on an American model because I do a lot of work in the United States. As you likely know, they just have a much better system. They're decades ahead of us because they've been fighting wars, right, pretty consistently for a long time. They have substantially more veterans per capita. They have an entire VA system that has got a massive budget. Granted, is very inefficient. If you listen to the last podcast with Sean Ryan with the VA minister, I'm going to say minister, but I think it's secretary in the States. So the VA secretary talking about how inefficient it is and just how much money they waste, which sounds pretty standard for any Veterans Affairs department. I don't know how the British or the Aussies roll, but it's likely the same. So how do we get those inefficiencies out? But then more importantly, like how do we support those veterans like myself and my buddies that have companies that want to serve? Problems are solved by entrepreneurs. They're not solved by the government. Government's there to support. I'm a firm believer that if you want to have a functioning democratic society, you got to let the capitalistic market take root. And you got to encourage those small businesses, not by necessarily giving them handouts, but by getting roadblocks out of the way. And so I think this idea that's proposed here with getting veteran-owned businesses priority for federal contracts is a great way forward. It's a great step in the right direction. Now, I'm going to bring up and share with you a question I asked to ChatGPT about this very thing and from an American perspective. So the Americans have business designations for their veterans, which is awesome. And I'll just read it to you here. It's up on the screen, but for those of you that are listening later on the audio version, you guys will get the benefit from it. So there's what's called a veteran-owned small business, a VOSB. The eligibility is that at least 51% is owned by or controlled by one or more veterans. So this would be a big change to the Canadian landscape because a lot of our organizations, especially like nonprofits, they're not owned by veterans. They're owned by civilians and they get tons of money from the government. The condition would be, no, it's got to be veteran owned in order to get the benefit, which is perfectly logical. The benefit here is that you have preference in federal contracting. So like what Pierre Poilievre just talked about, especially with Department of Veterans Affairs. That's cool. And access to special resources, included business development support. That's even cooler. And that's what I've been hammering on for quite a while. Why don't we have something that can actually support us directly? Because we put in the sweat equity to the country. How about on the back end, you give us some actual equity or some support to build the country back even better with our hard-earned labor and risk and skill sets in the business space. 2, service disabled veteran owned small business. So that's an SDVOSB. Eligibility, same thing, 51% veteran owned. Daily business operations and long-term decisions must be controlled by a service disabled veteran. So, hey, our current trend to be inclusive. Hey man, this is a perfect opportunity. You're including disabled veterans into the mix. So there's already these programs that exist for disabled people that are starting businesses in Canada. Why don't you bring the veterans along, but have our own separate system? I think it's perfect. The benefit, set aside contracts. Agencies must aim to award at least 3% of all federal contracting dollars to these organizations each year. I like that. Sole source contracts. Some contracts can be awarded without competition if certain conditions are met. I really like that. All right, so moving on. Certification authorities and processes. In the United States, Veterans Affairs have what's called a CVE certification. And it says it's now handled by the SBA, which is the Small Business Administration. So as of January 2023, the SBA, or Small Business Administration, is now the certifying authority for both VOSB and SDVOSB designations. SBA's Veteran Small Business Certification, which is called VetCert, is required to compete for set-aside contracts. That makes total sense. You got to have a KYC type thing. You got to go through the process. You got to do the paperwork. Totally fine with that. And self-certification. Some agencies still allow self-certification for non-set-aside purposes, but for federal contracting under these programs, SBA certification is now mandatory. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit more bureaucracy, but just so we can vet the vets. So if that makes sense. And then additional support programs. I really like these. Veteran Institute for Procurement, VIP. So Pierre, if you're listening, I'm hoping you're modeling off. It exists already. Don't reinvent the wheel. Training and mentorship for veteran-owned businesses. This is important because I don't know the first thing about applying for a contract with the federal government. But if you make the training available online and do it in veteran speak, we can learn. We'll figure it out. Hell, I'll even share it on my podcast. This is how we learn now. We do YouTube chunks. 2-minute lesson. Do this. Follow. Next video. Next video. Next video. Okay, cool. You know what to do? Carry on. Office of Veteran Business Development. So they have the SBA Resource Office supporting veterans, including through loans, mentoring, and training. Awesome. We already have organizations that are doing this on their own. A little bit of support might go a long way. And Veterans First Contracting Program, VA specific, prioritizes these SDVOSBs and VOSBs in VA procurement. The model is here, guys. The Americans have figured it out a long time ago. All we need to do is pick up the phone. Hey, America, can we get some help with this? Come on down. We'll have some dinner. We'll hash this bad boy out. We'll come to Montreal. We'll go get some poutine. We'll go watch a hockey game. Go Habs, go. Big game tonight, by the way. And get after it. There you go. You're welcome, Pierre. You got your plan right here. Give me a call. Pretty sure you're going to win on Monday. But moving on. What do you guys think? You guys think this is a solid idea for you, for the entrepreneur world out there? I think it is. And if they're serious about it, they put something like this in place. And let's be honest. How many veteran entrepreneurs are there out there? I mean, the number is relatively small. The amount of money you'd have to put into this is not a lot. I mean, the amount of money that goes into Veterans Affairs in and of itself, I think they gave $1 billion back last year. Well, a few $1 million would be more than enough. And then you could just tap into the already, I'm going to say thriving Canadian Veteran Entrepreneur Network and bring us into the loop. And boom, Bob's your uncle. We got something that's working. And then we're going to just create the critical mass and move on from there. Curious to know what you guys think. Let's pop up a comment here. I'm curious what veteran businesses compete with the private sector. Most are bootstrap. Also, there's a roadblock if you're IRB deck. Oh, yeah. Hey, Sailmaker, you got a great point. I'm going to touch base on this. In 2 points. So I think it's point number 6. Okay. Point number 6. I'll get right into this and address this because it is a great point. And Pierre actually addressed it. So I think he's been listening to the podcast because I brought this up a few times too. And I brought it up with Jody Middick. What do we do about this exact point? So let's get back to the video, guys, and see what point number 5 is. Point number 5 is a quickie. Okay, I'm not even gonna change the view here. We're just gonna go right
Will
into
help
it.
veterans transition from helmets to hard hats. Upon release, veterans would be provided with documentation they need to have their skills recognized by civilian employers. By creating a Red Seal system, veterans would bypass regulatory gatekeepers and be able to put their skills to work in the civilian world. We will also work to ensure veterans get post-secondary course credit for skills and knowledge they gained while serving in the forces. For example, a young veteran going back to business school should get credit for courses on leadership if they already have a background in leadership positions in the forces. Finally, we will work to review and remove clawbacks.
All right. So to touch on that point, like the helmets to hard hats, like that exists. That's a program that exists. I don't know it well because I never used it. If you have used it, drop it in the comments. I think it works well, but that's just my outside perception, of the program. The Red Seal stuff, I don't know much about it. Is there an issue going from, a specific trade like mechanic in the CAF to mechanic in the civvy streets? I'd like to know. Drop it in the comments here if you're listening. And when it comes to post-secondary credit, that's been something that has been on the table for a while. And as a reservist, it was just a nightmare to try and get credit for university courses that I really shouldn't have been doing. So to give you some context, I became a teacher while serving as a reservist. So I was in university doing a 4-year degree in education and in biochemistry. So part of it, you have to do some initial teaching practices in a classroom. The first one is 2 weeks of basically sitting in the back of class and watching a teacher teach. It's very emasculating, to say the least. I was 26 at the time. I was a sergeant. I was instructing every summer. Yeah, just nonstop. And I've already done PLQ, obviously, which is probably the best teacher instruction anybody could get. If you know what I'm talking about, the curriculum and the pedagogy for PLQ is better than any teacher program I've ever experienced or known anybody to go through here in Canada. Teacher education here sucks. Universities suck at making teachers. I'll be honest, because there's no rhyme or reason essentially to what courses you take that turn you, quote unquote, into a teacher. It's all theoretical shit, which is completely useless. They don't show you how to make a lesson plan. The military taught me everything. And when I was handing in my lesson plans, my supervisors in university were like, wow, these lesson plans are really tight. 3 columns, timeline, what do I need, teaching aids. Like, wow, this is really good, because they don't give you any kind of pro forma. They don't give you anything when you're learning how to become a teacher. So that being said, I was looking for just a deference for some of those early teaching practicums, because sitting in the back of the classroom not teaching was just awful for me. I was just trying not to fall asleep, but they adamantly refused. I even got letters from my CEO saying like, yeah, Dave's been instructing for years. He's a great instructor, blah, blah, blah. Nope. That's kind of frustrating, I'll be honest. And same with like the business stuff. If you've gone through PLQ and you've done your leadership training, that should be, that's better leadership training than any leadership training. And I've done my master's in leadership. The PLQ is a master's in leadership training. And then if you have any on the ground experience as a leader in the CAF, you're way more experienced and better trained than anybody that does an MBA in, leadership or whatever it may be. So that being said, there should be a absolute 1-for-1 like credit for whatever it may be. I know some universities do it, but all universities should be able to provide that for any member of the forces. Should just be across the board. It's just you need to have the teeth to actually back it up and do the actual work with the universities to make sure that the credits match up. That would be a huge bonus in my opinion for most folks. So now we're into the clawbacks. This is a big one. This is a big one because I've had issues with this, because this touches on the whole aspect of the way we're treated as a group is different from everybody else in society. And I'll get into that a little bit more after we watch this.
Of military pensions for veterans who get jobs. They shouldn't be punished for working. Their new income should be on top of their pension, not in place of it. Veterans shouldn't have to fight their own government for the benefits they've earned, but under Trudeau and the Liberals, they faced endless delays and denials, waiting months or even years for disability claims. To fix what the Liberals broke, a Conservative government will 1. Automatically approve disability applications if they aren't processed within 16 weeks. 2. Give veterans full control over their medical records. 3. Let military doctors assess injuries using one standardized system, no more bureaucratic roadblocks. 4. Ensure PTSD service dogs are available to veterans who need them with a national standard of support. And 5. We will make available the education and training benefit to veterans immediately upon receiving their release date.
All right, so a few points there. The main one being the clawbacks. So the clawbacks, I'm really not a fan of. So if you get the IRB, which is the income replacement benefit, that can eventually turn into the DEC, which is what the deferred earnings capacity. I always screw up what the acronym is. You can drop it in the comments if I got that right. If any other public service employee were to get their pension and then be told, okay, but for the rest of your life, you have to check in with this organization to make sure you're doing it right and not making any extra money on the side, the union would lose their shit. My wife's a public service worker. That just wouldn't fly. Let's say you get injured at work in any other domain. So if it's a public service, right? There's no overarching organization other than when you go to, you get your disability pension, let's say it's from work. And then if you're in Ontario, WSIB. But once you're granted your disability, that's it. Like, you're good. Go enjoy your life. I'm not saying like you're disabled and then you go commit fraud. Like, hey, like I'm missing a leg. You're not actually missing a leg. No, I'm just talking about you've been granted a disability award. It's monthly. You can't do your normal job anymore. So in my case, I wanted to continue working. They're like, no, you can't. But I want to. Sorry, you're not going to work here anymore. Well, that sucks because that's what I really wanted to do. So, all right, pay me then. But then to say, whoa, you can't make any more money. Like, you make $2,000, but that's the most you can make. Well, first of all, who determined $2,000 was? I can't find it anywhere. Why is $2,000 this magic number that you're allowed to make before they start clawing back? And then why the clawback in the first place? The perverse incentive or the message that's being sent here is that, hey, veteran, we know you got hurt, but you better damn well not get better. Because if you do, we're going to claw back so it's not going to be even worth it to get back into the workforce, or it's not even going to be worth it to start the business. You're not going to be able to make as much money because you're going to have to make all of your benefit plus. We're just going to keep on clawing it back. So this like sword of Damocles is kind of hanging over you. Like, well, man, if I kind of feel bad. Like, do I have to always be kind of messed up? Am I not allowed to get better? If I have post-traumatic stress and I feel a little bit better, all the like therapy and the work that I've been doing, like, hey, I'm feeling a little bit better. I've still been deemed disabled by the government. I still have it. I'm still struggling, not as much as I was. I think I can give back a little bit more. Why be punished? It seems so bizarre. And then to have to be constantly be monitored by an organization to make sure you're doing it right is very emasculating, not going to lie. And it just doesn't seem right. So I'm glad this issue was brought up. Just let us flourish. Odds are most veterans are likely not going to blast through that $2,000 cap. And one way to get around it is, I guess, one of the unforeseen consequences is there's a lot of veterans that just started companies. Like me, I started a company, right? It's not income, it's going through your company. So cool. We created an ecosystem of entrepreneurs, which is a good thing. We hire veterans. At least I do. Not a lot, but I hire veterans. They do some work. They take that money, they put it back into the economy. Like, I don't think we need to explain how market dynamics work here, but this is a good thing. You could hire more veterans. Like, this could really crank up the economy, in my opinion. And imagine you really knock it out of the park and you can do a consulting job, right? That doesn't require a lot of your time, but it pays really well because, hey, you're a really good leader. But, maybe you only can work a few hours a day, but it pays more than that $2,000 a month. I think that's a great idea. I think it should stick, and it would just allow you to grow and be more prosperous. So that's one main thing. The medical records. That was another thing I wanted to touch on too. I had to ATIP my shit from PCVRS. That rubbed me the wrong way. That really rubbed me the wrong way. I'm not quite sure what they mean with access. I don't know if they mean we shouldn't have to ATIP them. Maybe that's it. Because you can get your medical records as you're leaving the CAF. It's not difficult. I mean, I have them. So maybe some are getting a lot of friction for it. I mean, the PCVRS thing was a pain in the ass. I wanted the reports that were done for me, but they were just flat out refused without an ATIP, which that's not cool. I didn't agree with that. Maybe that's what they're talking about here. The education and training benefit. Yeah, I mean, I've got $40,000, and most of you Reg Forest folks, I think, have $80,000 if you did at least 4 years, if I'm not correct. That's a lot of cash. Unfortunately, most of it has to be used at a university institution, which, I'll be honest, the era of the university is toast. If the government's willing to drop $40K on you, I think it should be open to all the amazing mini courses that are out there. They're only allocating $5,000 of that 40 or 80K to like these mini courses that you want to do. I think it should be carte blanche, just because you'd be able to do all of these awesome mini courses, which are, in my opinion, way more effective than doing a 4-year degree at some ding dong university, having to go to school. Online is where education's happening right now. So open that up. That would be the main thing. And then, yeah, if you're already in the pipeline and you're already at the transition unit, that should definitely be open to you like right away. So you're not just sitting at home kind of waiting for it, not going to work, just checking in with the transition unit. Get your education benefit, get courses done. That would be a no-brainer. So I hope that gets taken care of. And the other thing, I guess, from there is, in general, there's a lot of money that's kind of thrown around, but there doesn't seem to be much in terms of like things that stick. And I'm speaking specifically to, getting yourself retrained. If there needs to be some vetting done with organizations, I get it, but I've seen that come and go so many times. I don't think that's going to be an efficient way. We got to go where the veterans are, right? And if you keep on trying to centralize things, it's going to be a disaster. Decentralize as much as possible, I think, is the way to go. That's just my opinion, right? That's been my experience. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars of my own money retraining myself. A master's degree, case in point, all the business courses, seminars, books, everything that I've done over the last 5-6 years, that's out of my pocket. Only recently did VAC cover the amazing course I did in Mexico for a week, which I'll get into in another episode. They didn't even cover my master's, man. They said, "Oh, sorry, you already started before you got your benefit. Can't cover it." Well, that kind of sucks. That kind of sucks. Why? Because you didn't approve it, because it didn't exist when I decided to go. You can't just say, "Oh, we'll retroactively go back and do it." Like, good on you for going back to school in your own time. That kind of stung a little bit, but I took it on the chin, and thankfully school isn't that expensive here in Quebec anyways. So I took advantage and did a 4-year master's degree. But that being said, I think we need to go find the veterans where they're at and make sure we decentralize a lot more than we do now. Let's get into some comments here. We got some good ones. Let's see here. So Nico, return viewer, welcome back. I don't trust any Fed party as an Albertan. Right on. As a Quebecer, I don't either. We have been backstabbed with every PM ever in Canada and the forced sale of the NWT before Alberta and Saskatchewan were provinces. Okay, cool. Don't know anything about that, but yeah, I agree with the distrust. Back to SailMaker, diminished earnings capacity. It's diminished earnings capacity. Got it. Okay. Clawbacks are triggered in excess of 20K. Yeah, right. It's 20K per year, but essentially like around 2K per month. And you got to report every month. It's a pain in the ass. I'm not going to lie. And it just seems like it's a system that's made to just kind of trip you up. That's basically it. Back to Sinico. Socialist elements of a Libertarian Socialist Foundation of Canada charter have been taking over more power every year since the 80s. Yeah, we're definitely on that bus. The level of entrepreneurship in Canada is at an all-time low, I believe. Also, capital flight, from what I've read, and this isn't my area of expertise, is just at an all-time high as well. Not good signs, right? It just means that there's no hope for innovation here. Hopefully that changes. Yukon Steph. Hey, Yukon Steph. How are you? At the point of leaving the cast stuff on my resume, as I find it's used against me to a point. In my opinion, I'm currently trying to change careers. So in my opinion, supervisory experience in the same, no matter if, okay. So you're saying that the CAF experience is a net negative when applying to companies. Interesting. Yeah. Could be a case because people don't look at you the same way when they know you're in the military, because nobody knows anybody in the military, and all the media is all negative about us. We're post-traumatic. We're angry at the government. We're always seen as like, fuck you guys. Where's the good news stories? Like there's a million of them. We don't see them, right? So definitely, I've never really had a bad experience. I'll be honest. I was a teacher for a long time, about 10 years. We never really discussed it. And the school I worked at anyways was very receptive to me being in the military because they had a strong military heritage. They're one of the oldest schools in Canada. They have World War I, World War II memorials to the students that they lost during the 2 world wars. So they really understood and they really appreciated it. So I was involved in a lot of their ceremonies, especially Remembrance Day, et cetera. So I had a pretty positive experience, but yeah, sorry to hear that's been a little shady for you. So moving on, what do we have left, guys? Let's see here. Let's roll that clip.
We'll also make sure that our military veterans have proper recognition and honor in our public spaces. Liberals have held up military memorials and delayed recognition for our troops. That's why a conservative government will restore respect for our heroes by recognizing veteran service cards as valid government ID nationwide, completing the National Monument to Canada's mission in Afghanistan immediately, and by officially recognizing Persian Gulf War veterans and their wartime service. A Poilievre government will respect our veterans, honor their service, and make their lives easier when they return. They fought for us. It's time for a government that fights for them. Most of all, it's time to bring home Canada's promise, especially for our veterans. Anyone who has served our country should be able to count on a reliable income that buys them an affordable house on a safe street, protected by a strong military under our proud flag, Canada. Let's bring it home.
So I got to give it to him. It's the first time I've ever seen anything like this in Canadian politics. So, but I always watch people's actions, not their words. So these are words. And they're not in government. So will they move forward on these promises? I hope so. They put it out there. And one thing I noticed he said in this video is Persian Gulf War. He mentioned the term war, and I think that's important. If you've looked throughout the last 20 years during the GWAT, the term war was never expressed in official documents, mostly anyways. They don't call it the Afghan war anywhere. It's not called the Afghan war. I would be surprised if they've even the war memorial is even called the Afghan war memorial. And my suspicion is because of the veteran charter. We have two groups of veterans. We have those that were pre-charter and post-charter. And those that are pre-charter were deemed wartime veterans. So therefore, they got the wartime benefit, pensions. Post-veteran charter, we can't be part of a war, because if we're part of a war, we should be getting the wartime benefit. So that's something that I noticed in this video. He mentioned war a few times. So are they going to be opening that back up? Because they're the ones that cocked it up in the first place. Are they going to go in and change that legislation? I hope so. Because in my opinion, it would just make things a lot simpler and a lot easier. Did you go to war? Yes. Cool. This is what's available to you. Not all this PCVRS, VAC case management, like all IRB, dude. Say, like, I want my grandpa's policy. Basically, I want Gramps' interaction with a VAC is basically nil. It was just, hey, here's your pension, and when you die, your wife gets it. Thanks for your service. You got blown up in Italy. Carry on, sir. And malaria. Yeah, like, that's it. Make it simple. And then, hey, you want to access these programs? Cool. They're there for you. Keep it simple. We'll manage. And, the modern day veteran, we're a lot more savvy. We don't necessarily need to be handheld nearly as much. So let us just not be bothered with so much of this nonsense, because it is emasculating when you're constantly being coddled and asked to get on the phone and explain things again. And just, I don't want to explain things anymore. And thank God I'm out of that. These are still in, man. It's just like, what do I have to explain things again for? Why has it been 7 years to just say, okay, yeah, you got your disability benefit. Like, here you go. Because you can tell it's just an insurance thing. They just want to try and trip you up and then delay, deny, die, right? So I'm hopeful that there'll be a change if the Conservatives get in. And like I said earlier, I would have done something on the Liberal policy promises here, but I can't find any. I found some obscure reference to supporting more female veterans. I don't really know what that means. And honoring veterans. It's kind of ambiguous, I think, on purpose, just because it's not an important part of their plank. Okay, so my 2 cents, guys. Here we go. What are my 2 cents? This is what I want to see. And this wasn't mentioned in the video. I want to see national frontline medical care for veterans. We used to have that. We used to have VA hospitals. Hell, there's one 15 minutes down the road from me, but it's not run by the federal government anymore. It's the last one. Is the one in St. Anne's. It's run by the province of Quebec now. It's apparently kind of a shit show. Surprise, surprise. Do we need a massive hospital for veterans anymore? Well, being a former military officer, one of the things that you don't want to do is let go of some of the resources that you've been allocated, right? You got to fight because maybe you need them later. A hospital seems like an important resource to keep in your resource list. The Americans have a bunch of hospitals, Walter Reed being one of them, and they have satellite offices, and they have millions of veterans, so they need that. And Veterans Affairs needs to be able to go out and reach the veteran in their community. If you can't do that with frontline medical care, you're kind of screwing the pooch, because all of us have to go access the publicly available healthcare system. And I think that is a big mistake. From my point of view, I'm not suffering from anything other than the chronic things that I was injured with in the military, but I need to go see a doctor a little bit more often than a normal dude that's in his 40s. I have concerns that are not quote unquote normal that take me sometimes 8 months to go see my doctor. That's unacceptable. What I'm asking for is one center of excellence. Could be in Ottawa. That'd be the obvious choice. That is for veteran health. That's staffed with doctors that are dedicated to veterans, nobody else. You have trainers, personal trainers in there. You have specialists. You have researchers. And they get into the weeds on all this stuff that can help veterans heal, where it's not just management. It's how do we heal our veterans? And then you can start leveraging all this to start creating a research environment that's data rich, and then apply this data that you get into the community, which will lead to innovation, because guys like me will read some of the papers and be like, oh shit, okay, cool. How do I apply this? How do I create a program for that? How do I partner with somebody? And then you start a business cycle around it. And then you can create this small little ecosystem, which can then increase the amount of innovation here in Canada, can heal veterans, get more of them into this cycle, and then you have a positive feedback loop. And you get to serve a very small slice of Canada very, very, very well, and set the model for years to come. And also the new crop of veterans that will come through the pipe, because there will inevitably be another large scale war. You'll have the system in place to be able to service them. Okay. And get them the help that they need so that they can heal, because we need to get out of this idea where we're providing healthcare. We need to provide a healing modality for veterans. And that's going to look different for every veteran. And that's what we need to start focusing on. One of the things that has to be part of this whole system is telehealth. We need to be able to access doctors and nurses that can right off the bat be able to set up some sort of diagnosis, but also provide some sort of standard of care. And they actually understand and they're trained on the veteran experience. I don't want to have to talk to my doctor another 5 times about what I did when he's like, oh, hey, yeah, Dave, you were in the RCMP. No, fuck. I was in the RCMP. I've been seeing you for 15 years, Barry. I'm not in the RCMP. I was in the military. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I got you. I don't want to have that conversation again. I just want to be able to talk to a doctor that understands the military experience. And we only have 460,000 veterans here in Canada. And we only have about 50,000 GWAT veterans. I know we can create a system that is the best in the world and an example for everybody to follow. We just need the political will to make it happen. So that's my first point. Second, access to plant medicine. This loops into this veteran medical standard of excellence and having a dedicated facility and group that just works on this stuff. The Americans are pushing for the right to try for their veterans, which is letting them gain access to psychedelic treatments. They're putting that and they're tabling that as legislation. They still have to access it outside of the country, because things like ibogaine and ayahuasca and so these are all class scheduled drugs, so they can't research them and they can't prescribe them, and they're essentially illegal. So you have to go to Mexico, you have to go to Colombia, you have to go outside the country to do this. We need to have similar legislation here. We can't go through the same, jumping through hoops and then eventually get a ketamine therapy that brings you to Toronto, and then you get blasted out of your mind and you have this crazy experience, and then you get back on the bus and go home. No, there are much better systems out there. The veteran community has figured them out. The ones that are doing really well and doing a ton of work, shout out to Becoming Om in Mexico. These are the ones that we need to get funded, and these are the ones that we need to start leaning on to stem and to push back on the suicide crisis. But then also just to make sure that our future veterans, they have a system that they know they can rely on that's actually going to get them the help and the healing modalities that they need. So one thing that I bring up is the fact that we already have a plant medicine program in place here in Canada. I have essentially $1,000 worth of weed that I can order and it comes to my house. That's a lot of weed. It's a plant. It's medicine. Why can't I use that $1,000? So I get roughly $12,000 a year. Why can't I use that to access plant medicine healing journeys? I think that would be a logical solution. We already have it done. Blue Cross pays for it. Just let us use the funds. I can't order my weed, but hey, I'm going on a retreat to Colombia. I think that would make a lot of sense. So the program's already there. We just need to have the political will to say like, hey, let's just open this up. Let's let them access that funds for something different. Like, no, you guys think about that. Is that on point? Did I come up with a good idea there? Let's get into the comments. I got 2 more points, and then we're wrapping up because then I'm off to Ottawa. I'm off to Ottawa to get ready and get my mind set for the fight that's coming up tomorrow morning on the BJJ mats. So where did I? Oh man, we got a lot of comments since I since I last did away. Okay, Yukon Steph, you're the last one I went over. Let's go back to Saniko. Was it Harper or Trudeau that put the Afghan memorial behind locked doors? I can't remember. So we're talking about the one that was in CAF. That would have had to have been Trudeau, right? Because that was 20. Well, no, it wouldn't have had to have been. It's 2015, right? So I don't know. I saw it when it was here in Montreal, but I don't know who, locked that away. That should be on public display. But the official one that's being built, that's been delayed because of obvious corruption and scandal, because everything is in this country. We need a place to mourn and actually remember, and it needs to be public. That's the point of these things. It's for our soul, a country. When you delay it, I mean, you corrupt it. Actions speak louder than words. You don't give a shit, is what you're saying. Go pound sand. We need to do better. Yukon Steph, back to whether or not the Afghan war was a war. I did a whole video on this, actually. Pretty sure I was in a war. Pretty sure those rockets and rounds coming down range implied I was in a war, and I was wearing Canadian flag on my shoulder while I did it. So you can call it an operation, you can call it a conflict, but it was definitely a war for me. So yeah, operation is typically what they call it. They always refer to the operations within the operation. What was it? Was it Athena for the longest time? It's 15 years. Holy shit. I'm getting fuzzy on even the terminology. It's been so long. But yeah, operation is not a war, right? It's like, oh, we just went on an operation. Oh, how long was it? Like a few days? No, it was like 20 years. Oh man. Okay. Go back to Sailmaker here. They didn't even want to call Korea a war until 10, 15 years ago. Yeah, weird, eh? But they're included in the old Veterans Act stuff, which is a shame. And the Americans too. I think Vietnam was called a conflict for the longest time. Governments do this, right? They play dirty tricks, so their lawyers can get away with screwing us. So where else am I? Yukon Steph, thanks. Yeah, VAC is contracted out like public health. Yep, it is. Yeah, the PCVRS thing is not cool. If you're dealing with it, it's not cool. I don't like dealing with insurance agents. So, I mean, they're not there. The people you talk to give you the impression that they're there to help. They're not there to help. They're an insurance agent. If you understand that, play the game. That's it. They're just delaying giving you your benefits, which sucks. It just sucks. So Pierre mentioned in that video that, automatic after 16 months. Is it 16 months or 6 months? I think it was 6 months, right? You get your benefit. I've said that from the start. If there's any group of people in Canada that is least likely to commit fraud or to put in a fraudulent claim, it's veterans. Like, we're heavily vetted to get into the forces. And from what I remember, the amount of fraudulent claims, it's like under 2%. So the logical thing to do would be like, well, let's let's approve all of them up front, and on the back end, investigate. That would make sense to me, because then you have time. And if somebody is found to have made a fraudulent claim somehow, which seems very hard for me to comprehend, then you can obviously take them to court, because that's fraud, right? They can be charged criminally for that. But veterans as a whole don't even apply for their own benefits. So when they do apply, just say, dude, thanks for applying. Like, this money is here for you. You know, there's not a limited pool of money, because we give back a whole bunch. You guys just don't apply for it. Apply for it. We approve it. And then we'll have our investigators go through the claims. And if there's something wrong, or if you did commit a fraud, God forbid, you know, I shouldn't say God forbid, but then, you know, hey, then you're a criminal. So you get what's coming to you. Odie's Patton, welcome. Great idea. I'm assuming for all. I don't know how long ago this was. I don't know what point I was on, but yeah, okay. Wayne Forrest, dude, sorry to hear. I now use a walker wheelchair because of no doctor. Yeah, that's rough. So make a TRT for PTSD is promising. I hear, yeah, there's a lot of things that are really promising. I mean, mild traumatic brain injury, like Ibogaine, I just did an episode I'm going to be dropping soon about it. Just incredible stuff. TRT, we never talk about. I'm going to get into it right now. Toxic exposure, we don't talk about that stuff. You know, we make everything seem to be a mental health issue. Mental health is the symptom of a root cause, which can often be traced back to a crushed endocrine system because of toxic exposure, mild traumatic brain injury, the host of things that can be happening, right? So PTSD is often the catch-all because there's a laziness in the system. It's easy to just give you an SSRI and get the fuck out of my office. So that being said, 2 last points, and then I'm off to Ottawa. Toxic exposure, like I just mentioned, we need to enact legislation so veterans do not have to go to court on their own and pay out of pocket and hopefully win against VAC. Case in point, 2 troops finally got awarded their disability for cancers that are linked to toxic exposure and burn pits at Camp Nathan Smith. So they had to go on their own and fight VAC. The VAC said, no, can't prove it. It was a decade later. How do we know? Well, the evidence is indisputable. And it's from the United States of America, that they brought that to their legislative branch. And they said, well, yeah, I mean, like, clearly these guys are messed up. Like, they're getting weird cancers at 35. Well, what could it be? Well, we're riddled with lead, mercury, and all the PFOAs and all the nasty chemicals that come with burning literally everything and sucking back that smoke. So you do a deployment, 2, 3 deployments, and you suck back all that smoke, you're 100% exposed. Now, what does that do to your body? Everybody's going to react differently, but it's safe to say it's not good. So there should be blanket legislation that everybody that deployed, especially to the GWAT, you were exposed. And if you develop cancer, it's because of your exposure, and there is no denying your claim. Okay. We don't want to have to fight VAC case by case, because that's what they want, but we can't give them that. Okay? Going to court must be a nightmare, and the financial burden that has on you can't be fun. And then lastly, this dirty little secret: resolution of the COVID era court cases where veterans were cast out of the military for a medical procedure that we now know was 100% orchestrated and 100% detrimental to your health. So they did the right thing. And yet they lost their jobs, they lost their pensions, they lost everything. Reinstate them, back pay, even if they don't want to get back in, do the right thing. Give them their money, make sure they get their pension, and make sure they get their disability for those that are injured. I think that's a no-brainer. And also resolve the Mefloquine lawsuits. Yeah, it's going to suck because you're going to set precedent. But if you're a leader, you do what's right. And in this case, this is what's right. And this will start reestablishing trust, because as it stands right now, there is no trust in the system. If you can do these few things, Pierre, if you're elected, you'll have a big supporter. So time will tell. Monday's a big day. We're all going to the polls if you haven't voted already. I'll be going on Monday and casting my vote. And this isn't an endorsement for any one candidate. This is just the fact that there's actually a video talking about veterans on a political platform. It's a first, I think, in Canada. I've never seen this before. So good on the Conservatives for reaching out and addressing some of the concerns here for the veteran community. Obviously, it's not perfect, but at least it's the start. And whether the Conservatives get in or not, I hope the Liberal Party is listening too. If they get voted in, like, hey, guys, can we have a little discussion here? We're Canadians too, you know. We're part of the tapestry. So when you need warriors again, because you're the ones that got us into this war in the first place for 20 years, you're going to need those war fighters again. You probably want to get us on your side so we can actually start hitting the war drum when they start beating again and not being your biggest resistors. Just saying. So that being said, thanks, folks, for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Share with your friends. Make sure to like, subscribe. If you haven't done so already, become a member. It's here if you look at the channel. Would really appreciate you buying me a coffee. You can do it in the super chat that's here if you're listening on YouTube. $1 here, $1 there really helps, keeps the lights on. We're starting season 7 of the podcast this week. We got some bangers when it comes to guests. Dallas Alexander, Tamara Litch, Dr. This is insane. We have Dr. McCullough. That was an incredible conversation. I'm still blown away by it. If you're not already subscribed, make sure to do so because you're not going to want to miss any of these episodes. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments here for this video. Are we doing enough for our veteran population? And what do you think about what I had to say? That's it for me. Wish me luck and my kids luck this Saturday in Elmer at our first BJJ competition. I'll be posting about it here and on all the other platforms, but mainly on Instagram on my stories. You can follow me there at the Hard Skill Podcast. That's it for me. Enjoy the rest of your day, folks. Train hard, fight easy. Peace.